Welcome to Changing Course. I'm your host, Maya Adam, and our guest today is the global rugby legend, Tendai Mtawarira. He's a phenomenal athlete turned philanthropist who executed an impressive change of course after deciding to leave professional rugby and start a community-based organization called the Beast Foundation. He also followed a longtime passion and started a wine company, and his wines are now being served in some of New York's finest Michelin-starred restaurants. Tendai is one of the most capped rugby forwards of all time. He helped South Africa win the Rugby World Cup in 2019, and he's a national sports hero around the world, but especially in South Africa and in his home country of Zimbabwe. Tendai, I know you're inundated with requests for interviews, so thank you so much for making the time to speak with us today.
It's such a pleasure, Maya. So glad to be on here and looking forward to a great conversation.
Thank you. Tendai, can you start by telling us how you went from being a kid in Zim who loved sports, loved playing rugby, to a national celebrity on the world sports stage?
Well, Maya, for me, it was humble beginnings. I was born and raised in Harare in Zimbabwe, and I grew up in a simple home. My dad was the provider, and my mom was the anchor of the house. She was the housewife, and they taught me and my siblings to believe in ourselves. That we could achieve anything in life. With hard work, with a lot of determination and discipline, that we could become conquerors and go as far as we want to. So that gave me a strong foundation. And obviously at an early age, I discovered the passion for rugby. And by the time I turned 16, everybody in the country was talking about me being the most talented young player in the country. So I knew that, rugby was for me. And at that time, economically, the country was suffering. When I came of age, my parents were struggling to put, food on the table. So I saw rugby as my way out, a way to change my situation, a way to help my family. So I took it really seriously from a very young age. So I was quite, professional in my approach since the age of, 16 years old, working out all the time. And by the time I obviously got the scholarship and the contract from the Sharks, I was 18 years old, and I had to bus down all the way to Durban. And I had only about $200 in my name. I had a few items of clothing and a dream, and a dream to play professional rugby. And that dream, literally drove me to breaking barriers and doing things that I never thought possible. I was quite gifted in terms of my strength, but I was going to a world where there were so many other talented young people. So this do or die attitude that I had with me, it helped to set me apart, and it helped me prevail, in so many challenges. And I can tell you, it laid the platform for me to become a world champion. So some of these life lessons that I learned along the way, they built the character, and obviously going all the way back to my parents, teaching me about self-belief and just being, faithful, and that all paid off, in due time.
So Tendai, you think that comes, are people born with that? Or do you think that comes from the messaging from home? That kind of belief in yourself?
I definitely think that it comes, from your parents, your family, those that surround you, especially from a young age. When you constantly hear that, that you are the best, you can do anything, nothing is impossible, from the ones that you love the most, it kind of propels you to achieving your wildest dreams. And for me, especially my mom, she was that person for me. She kept on telling me that, you can, do anything that you put your mind to. And she always used to come and watch me play rugby at a tender age. So, I can tell you, she's my hero. She made the biggest difference in my career.
Wow. I watched a beautiful interview with you. I actually teared up. You said the words, "They underestimated me." Do you remember that interview?
Yes.
You said, "They underestimated me." And I thought, what a powerful sentence. If we all could believe that a little bit more, it would change the world.
I totally agree. I believe that, if we have more people that stand up, and don't give up on their dreams, they pursue it with everything, we're going to have so many more successful stories to tell, to inspire the next generation. So for me, it's a big deal. I took that step, that step in faith, and I didn't know what was lying on the other side. But I took a bold step of faith, and it ended up, leading me to a path of so many great milestones and achievements.
Tendai, this started though with you when you were even younger, because I heard a story about how you took a bus to some prestigious school and asked the headmaster, the principal, for a scholarship. Tell me that story.
Yes, man, that's quite a crazy story. So I was going to a government school at the time, and I knew that for me to really, pursue rugby playing career or professional career, and even better my academics, I needed to go to a better school. And that school was Peter House. It was probably one of the most prestigious schools, and still is to this day, in Zimbabwe. And my parents could not afford to send me there, and I knocked on the door a few times, saying, could you give me a scholarship? But they said no. But on this one particular afternoon, I saved up some money, never told my mom and dad. I just jumped on a chicken bus. If you don't know what a chicken bus is, it's the one that's got all the livestock on it. You got chickens and everything on it. So I took this bus for probably about an hour. I got to the school, took the long walk, from the gate. It's like a long walk all the way to the reception. Got to the reception, asked the school secretary to get me an audience with the rector or the principal. So, she was obviously like, surprised, like, what are you doing here? I was wearing a different school uniforms. Like, do you have an appointment or anything? Who are you here to see? So I just told her, no, I came to see, the principal if he's available, because I've got something I want to get off my chest. So, eventually I got to see him. Fortunately he was available, so I got to go into his office. And this whole thing rehearsed. I was ready to deliver the speech of my life. And I told him the reasons why he should, give me a scholarship, the reasons why he should bring me to the school. And he was blown away. And he told me that obviously as a school, they have never done this before. This is something totally new for them. But they would, convene as a board and see if they can give me a scholarship. He did say, he was impressed, with my words, how they came across. And pretty much I went back, after that meeting, and then within a few weeks, got one of the best phone calls in my life from the principal saying that they've decided to award me with the first ever scholarship at Peter House. It was pretty crazy.
That is amazing. And did he follow your career after that principal?
He did. He followed my career till the end. He always sent me messages. He came to watch some of my test matches when I played for the Springboks. So he was an avid fan, and him and his wife. His wife is late now, but they used to like reach out and encourage me, and they remembered where the story kind of began. So pretty cool.
Amazing. What a story. What a story. And Tendai, I also heard that at one point Archbishop Desmond Tutu got involved and advocated for you to join the Springboks. How did that happen?
Yeah, so it's a crazy story. Another one, I was playing for the Springboks 2 years prior to that situation. So I made my debut in 2008, and obviously, I was born in Zimbabwe, so I came here and I was eligible to play for the Springboks through the World Rugby laws that state that if you're a resident in another country for 3 or more years, then you can obviously participate, you can represent the nation. So I qualified under those rules. And then 2 years down the line, when I was actually a big part of the success of the Springbok team, the Minister of Sport decided to pull me out because I didn't have a South African passport. So for me, it was a dark time. It was a difficult time for me and my family. And it was, and everybody kind of gave up and didn't see a way out because it was pretty tough to get a passport. It takes you usually 12 years, 10 to 12 years. So imagine if I had to sit out for 12 years, and I come back, I got gray hair. Nobody's going to pick me for the Springboks. So fortunately, through, being faithful and just, trusting my gut and, the Lord made a way for me through Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I got one of the best phone calls of my life. The Arch called me and he said that he was going to help me to get my passport because he didn't understand why I was being treated this way. He told me he was a big fan. He always used to chant for me when I was on the field. So he said I'm doing a great job of inspiring the next generation. So he decided to come alongside me, and he turned a 12-year process into a 6-week process. So I got my passport within 6 weeks, and I was able to play for the Springboks again. So yeah, amazing, just an amazing testimony on faith and just trusting your guts.
Unbelievable story. Anything is possible, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. Tendai, tell me about your foundation that you've started now post your professional rugby career, and also tell me a little bit about how the foundation got its name.
Oh yes, the Beast Foundation is basically born from the journey that I took to where I am today, to becoming a world champion. Obviously I told you, I came from humble beginnings, didn't have nothing much, and along my journey, there's so many people that invested in me. I didn't have a pair of boots when I was playing in high school. I didn't own a pair of boots because obviously my parents couldn't afford. And I got this family just as, out of generosity. They literally donated my first pair of boots. I remember sleeping with them for a couple of days on end because it was precious to have. I've got my rugby playing boots now, my first pair. It's pretty special. So, I've got so many testimonies of people just coming alongside to help me in my journey, to help me elevate and reach the next level. So when I retired, I decided to start the Beast Foundation. Obviously, inherited my nickname, the Beast, and, empower the next generation. The mission and vision of this foundation is to empower the next generation across Africa on the platforms of sport, education, and life skills development. I believe that our young people, our youth are our future, and if we invest in them, and some of the problems that we face currently globally, they will fix those, tomorrow. Come up with the solutions if we equip them with the right skills, the right knowledge, give them the proper mentorship. We've got some, iconic leaders for the future. So for me, it's a big deal to invest in young people. I see it as the greater part of my legacy to empower, the next person.
Amazing. And Tendai, apart from investing in young people in general, you're also investing in some very specific young people that you're raising.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about your family? And I know your family is incredibly important to you. I've met your very impressive wife who keeps educating herself and getting another degree and another degree. She never stops. Tell me a little bit about your family and how that helps you achieve things in life.
Yes, I'll tell you definitely a little bit about my family. So the first one is my wife, because as you say there, Maya, she's a go-getter. After having 2 kids, she managed to get 3 degrees now. She just completed a master's. So I'm like, when is he going to stop? The next one is probably be a PhD. But I can tell you, my family has been at the center for my success. The backing for my wife has been incredible. It allowed me to pursue my dreams. She put aside her own dreams to support me throughout my rugby playing career. And obviously we had kids quite early. We got married 13 years ago, and we had a honeymoon baby. So she had to set aside her dreams to support me. She used to travel all the time. She used to go back and forth, always cheering me on. And that support gave me a foundation to reach greater heights. And obviously my kids, my daughter's name is Talumba. She's 12 years old now, and my son is Wangu, he's 10, and they've been my inspiration. I look at them and I just want to go out there and conquer the next big task, because they inspire me in a big way. being a father is something that I don't take for granted. It's such an honor. So I want to shape them, mold them, to become, great leaders of the future, and allow them to see that they can achieve anything. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, I came from nothing, They're like, no ways, you're lying. I'm like, I'm telling you, I had to walk a tough road to get to where I am today, so it's like for them, they don't really understand. They're quite young, but I think eventually as they go further in their journey, they're going to start, really appreciating some of the lessons they're learning. But I believe, the vision, and we give them as children, being, their parents has been quite, instrumental in just making me the man I am today. And my wife inspires me. She had to play mom and dad at certain times because I was traveling overseas. She had to play that role. So for them to see us close knit, making decisions together, and going about this life journey, and pursuing different things, following our dreams, always being happy. It's such an important image for the kids, because it will mold them to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah. Somebody said to me once, we're not supposed to live in our children's world. We're supposed to be a window to a beautiful adult world so they can see what's coming. And I think that's what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Maya. I'm trying. I'm trying. Thank you.
And Tendai, you're also following your own passion. We got to taste the incredible wine collection that you've started that's now being served in these amazing New York restaurants. And it's been a passion of yours for a long time, but you've only had the time to pursue that more recently. Tell me about that experiment or that adventure.
So, it was a secret. It was a big secret that I kept away from the public, that I was a big wine lover. So, if you're a professional athlete, you don't come out and say that you love wine, because every time you have a bad game, they're probably going to say you've been drinking too much wine. So I kept it at bay. But on all my travels, I used to collect wine, whether, being in Argentina, Australia, or New Zealand. I used to collect wine. I had a big wine cellar at my old house, and I used to stack it up in there. And some of my rugby mates obviously can testify to that fact. And when I retired, one of the things that I've been blessed with since I retired is to follow my passion. An opportunity, came about where I could start my own brand of wine. And for me, the vision was to create premium, high quality wine that people would enjoy all across the world. I wanted to take the best of South African wine to the world. And, it was a lot of work, but eventually we came up with the Beast Wine collection. And now, we are selling globally in the US, we're selling in the UK, in France, in Germany. So it's amazing, it's just, something that I had in my heart that I wanted to pursue. And eventually I realized that dream.
How lovely. How lovely. Okay, I'm going to switch gears for one last segment, and then we're going to let you get on with your day, Tendai. This question is a bit tricky. We're in this strange time in our world right now that is quite turbulent. Things are changing quickly, and many people are struggling to kind of balance this quickly changing world. And we're facing this global mental health crisis right now, where young people especially are struggling to build lives and careers that fulfill them and sort of go after their dreams. If you had to give some advice to young people, the next generation that are maybe in their 20s and 30s right now and trying to build a life, what advice would you give them in this world and in this time that we're living in?
I think the first thing that I would say to them is, dream big. Dreams are never too big to chase. First, have that vision of what you want to achieve. Have your goals set out. And I know that obviously things have been tough post, pandemic and, during the pandemic, and people are still trying to find their feet. But I believe that the best is yet to come. So you got to have that positive mindset. You got to approach life with that positive mindset and know that, I can achieve anything, despite my circumstances, despite the struggles, despite it looking at dark and gloom out there, I can still achieve greatness. So obviously I know mental health has been a big topic, being spoken about a lot over the last couple of years. And I believe that it's important. Yes, obviously you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have tough days. So you got to find outlets where you can vent, when you can talk about what's, burdening you, what's bothering you, and you have an outlet to search for, mental health experts, practitioners that can help you, to just be stronger on the inside, because obviously, you can always be strong on the outside, but inside nobody can tell what's going on, So it's important to be vulnerable and speak, about what you're going through, and there's people that can help you out, So it's important in this day and age to have a mental health practitioner. My wife is one, so I've got in-house, I don't have to pay for it, so she has to give me counseling sessions from time to time, but but it's important.
Lovely. That is great advice. Wonderful advice. Tendai, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, a message you want to leave, or if we've covered most of it. Anything else we should talk about?
I think we have spoken in context. I think I did. Obviously, I did speak about inspiring the next generation. So I think we pretty much covered the bulk of it. If you're happy,
Excellent. I am so happy, and I'm so grateful to you for joining us and for making the time. It's really, you're an inspiring person. Not only the fact that you made the impossible a reality, but also that you've just stayed so lovely and normal. And I can't tell you how happy I am that there are people like you in this world.
Oh, thank you, Maya. I'm very touched by those amazing words. Really humble. Thank you.